From WisPolitics in Madison, you're listening to Capital Chats.
Hi, and welcome to a WisPolitics Capital Chats podcast brought to you by Spectrum. I'm Abigail Levins, and I'm here in the office with my colleague Kate Morton to talk about an interview she did with the Secretary of the Department of Revenue, David Casey. So, Kate, tell us about the interview.
Yeah, Abigail. So we talked a little bit about the secretary's background. We also talked about the budget and some of the Department of Revenue's priorities for that.
All right, let's get to the interview.
All right, Secretary Casey, thank you for joining me on Capital Chats today.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I think to get us started off, you could first just tell me a little bit about yourself and how you came to this role as Secretary of Revenue.
Well, I've got an entire career around tax and revenue. It sounds a little nerdy, but that's how I started. In 1995, I worked at the Kansas Department of Revenue as a consultant, helping build an integrated tax system, one of the first in the country, for the Kansas Department of Revenue, and then turned that into a career. So I have worked at over 15 state departments of revenue and half a dozen national departments of revenue around the world. I was doing that and flying around the country in and out of Madison for 20 years. I lived in Madison and kind of got tired of doing the fly in and fly out, and was fortunate enough to literally just throw my resume in when Governor Evers was first elected in 2019. And Secretary Barca saw my resume and brought me on and appointed me as the deputy secretary. So I was the deputy secretary here at the Department of Revenue for 3.5 years. I did all the day-to-day operations. Kind of, as I say, I got to actually practice what I had preached for years to all these different agencies and see how it really works on the inside. I left for a couple years, or a year and a half or so, went to work for a data analytics company called SAS, and I was their global tax expert. So I worked with countries on essentially how to use data to improve tax processing, tax administration, make it more efficient, make it more effective. And then when Secretary Barca decided to leave, I kind of was hoping the governor would call, and I did get the call. I was more than happy to come back to the Department of Revenue. It is an awesome agency. It's got great people, great staff. I absolutely love it here. We're innovative. We do really cool things with technology and process, and ultimately serve the taxpayers of Wisconsin, which is just, we touch almost every citizen in Wisconsin. So the opportunity to come back was one that I jumped at. And so here I am today.
Yeah. So as you know, we're in kind of the throes of the budget process at the moment. I'm wondering, what are some of your biggest priorities for DOR in the budget?
So most of what we have in the budget, from I look at it a couple things. One, from the policy standpoint and the governor's policies around fair and equitable taxation, helping the middle class, trying to help taxpayers who may be hurting right now, not feeling the economic bump that everyone does. So making sure that we help everybody out, and if we can do that through tax policy and Governor Evers' proposals. When I look at from my role, kind of that administration standpoint, we have some requests in the budget for resources. What we look at is we want to make sure that we're administering the taxes as efficiently and effectively as possible. I mean, we do that every day. So whether it's investments in new technology, investments in human resources, so some individuals that we need that can help bolster our statewide debt collection program, that's in there. We also have our new division of alcohol beverages, and realizing that standing up that division, there are a lot of demands on that division from, frankly, from 6,000 or 7,000 taverns throughout the state and another 10,000 or so convenience stores. That places a lot of demands on our agency for the administration of the alcohol laws. So having the resources to do that has been a priority as well. But I would say for us, it really comes down to that equitable, fair treatment of the taxpayer and making sure that we collect taxes for the state as efficiently and effectively as possible.
Sure. Now, there's been somewhat of an economic uncertainty with a lot of tariffs the Trump administration has put on other countries. I'm wondering how you see that impacting revenue, especially as lawmakers are starting to work on the state budget.
Yeah, we've got a great research and policy group we've got a few economists that look at this on a regular basis. I ask them this question quite frequently, and the answer I get is, what's it like this week or today? I mean, as we know, just in the last day or so, um, the administration reduced, or I believe is potentially reducing the tariffs on China on goods from China. So there's a lot of uncertainty. What we try to do is build our models to go with what we know and then make some assumptions around that uncertainty. And that uncertainty is difficult to measure. When we talk about tariffs, I mean, it can have multiple effects on the economy. It can have inflationary effects by increasing the cost of goods to the common Wisconsinite. It can also impact our businesses depending on who our trade partners are and where those tariffs are. It can also give us some advantages. So balancing all of that out and trying to identify specifically what the impacts of tariffs are is very difficult, but we're doing it on honestly a week-to-week basis. We're looking at the impacts. Right now, our revenue forecasts are pretty consistent. We're expecting one to come out of LFB in the next week or so that will have some of our economic modeling in it.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask a little bit about sales tax collections
Mhm.
down in March compared to 2024. And I'm wondering, what are the latest numbers looking like? Are they up at all this April compared to last year? Like, where are those at?
So right now they're right on track with our forecast. We do see some variability month to month based on consumer behavior. It also is based on some timing, frankly, just on when the numbers are pulled. Uh, so we'll see some variability, but right now we are pretty much on track for what our forecast was for the year across the board on all tax types, but sales tax in particular.
Where was the forecast at exactly?
Gosh, so the number, I don't know the exact number right offhand. I know we're forecasting around 21 billion total, 21, 22 billion, and sales tax is usually around 8.5 billion of that.
Okay, so would that have been an improvement from last year?
Yes, we did. I mean, we did have a bump from last year. I believe it was around 2.3% is what we were expecting it to be up. Um, and that's what I'm saying. Right now we're on track for that forecast.
Okay. Yeah, another thing I wanted to talk about, you were appointed about a year ago in
Mhm.
April. Have you had, yeah, any conversations with senators about your confirmation?
I have met with, I believe, 28 or 29 senators. So I made it a priority starting in January to meet with every senator and then to meet with the assembly leadership as well of both parties. So I've been meeting regularly with them and also meeting with the Assembly Ways and Means as well as the ag and revenue in the Senate on a regular basis. To me, it's just important to have that constant communications. So confirmation specifically, I've asked a few. I don't really get into that too much. I'm doing my job, and I kind of assume if I do my job and I do my job well, then I will not have any hurdles getting confirmed. Um, I don't know timing or schedule right now, but I believe that I've got fairly good relationships um, with members of the Senate where they can call me, I can call them. Doesn't matter the party. I'm looking here, I'm like, it kind of goes back to about collecting taxes efficiently and effectively. And that is fairly nonpartisan for the most part.
Yeah. Before we wrap up the interview, is there anything else you want to add about your work, your priorities, things that you're working on right now?
Yeah, we've got a few priorities that I bring from my past and some of my interests. One of those is continuous workforce development. Uh, we have 1,200 employees at the Department of Revenue, and our employees are so important to everything that we do. whether you're selling lottery tickets, which we sell 188 million of them a year, or if you're auditing and have, constant engagement with a taxpayer around a difficult audit, or we also work with 1,850 clerks throughout the state. So having that, the staff and the skills to be able to manage all of those interactions and be efficient at what we do is absolutely critical. So one of our goals is just the continuous development of all of our team members. So through training, supervisor programs, we have emerging leader programs to nurture and develop younger staff and develop them into leaders in the agency. We have a big focus on that. That's one I'm particularly interested in that actually kind of came from Secretary Barca when he and I worked on it as well. The second that kind of goes back to my years at SAS is data-driven decisioning. We have a big emphasis right now on using data to make decisions. So when people come to me and have issues or questions, I'm like, well, show me the data. What does the data say? It's extremely important in our tax world to understand how data can be used to drive those decisions. And along with that then is, an emphasis on building, a platform to use data, whether we're using it with machine learning tools to identify fraud, potential fraud with tax returns, or using artificial intelligence to help us with our call center and our customer interactions. So data is just something I really get into, and I'm making that a priority this year as well. So those are kind of the two goals or priorities we have as an agency right now. We have a number of others with each division, but those are kind of the pillars right now.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you again for coming onto the podcast, and I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for sharing that interview with us, Kate. If you want to learn more about the state budget, head to wispolitics.com and check out our budget blog. For now, I'm Abigail Levins.
I'm Kate Morton.
And thanks for listening to this WisPolitics Capital Chats podcast, brought to you by Spectrum.